Fall at Height Rescue Plan. The purpose of this rescue plan is to establish construction site guidelines for responding to falls from height. This rescue plan is intended to reduce risks to workers' health after a fall arrest event. The rescue plan is expected to minimize the level of at-risk behavior of the rescuer during the rescue attempt and help to ensure that the rescue is conducted promptly in a safe and timely manner. The plan also addresses the need to recognize the risks of suspension trauma, how to prevent suspension trauma and how to treat suspension trauma. When a worker falls and is suspended in a harness, it's important to rescue him or her as quickly as possible because of the following reasons. The worker may have suffered injuries during the fall and may need medical attention. They may suffer from blood pooling in the lower body as a result of being suspended in their safety harness for long periods. This can lead to suspension trauma. Suspended workers may panic if they are not rescued quickly. The event that led to the fall may create additional risks that need to be addressed. It is therefore necessary that all people involved in the rescue mission carefully analyzes all risks and hazards of rescue before undertaking the activity. This rescue plan applies to all locations where personnel are employed to work at height. The requirements of this rescue plan must be observed by all personnel involved in working at heights. This rescue plan must be reviewed or included in any job safety analysis or pre-task planning for activities that require working at heights. Rescue plan, a strategy or procedure planned in advance to safely retrieve a person who has fallen from an elevated work surface and is suspended in a full body harness. This includes self-rescue or mechanically aided rescue. Self-rescue, an act or instance of an employee using his fall protection equipment to rescue him or herself. Mechanically aided rescue, a strategy or procedure planned in advance to safely retrieve a person who has fallen from an elevated work surface using mechanical means. Suspension trauma, a serious medical condition that can lead to unconsciousness, injury or death, which can occur when a worker is suspended in a harness for too long after a fall. Prompt rescue. The recommended goal for rescue subject contact is less than 6 minutes per an SIZ 359.2-6.1. Must be trained and familiar with the fall protection procedure, must understand and be able to evaluate the risks associated with working at heights, must be trained and competent in the use of fall protection equipment prior to conducting work at heights. Must report unsafe conditions or behaviors to the person in charge. Must be familiar with and understand the company's rescue plan to provide prompt rescue in the event of an arrested fall event. Must be trained by the HSSE engineer and competent scaffolder before being exposed to a fall hazard or potential rescue application. Must be retrained when the nature of the work, workplace, or methods of control or rescue change to an extent that prior training is no longer adequate. Must be trained on how to inspect, anchor, assemble, and use the fall protection and rescue equipment used in locations where employees work. Training must include physical demonstrations by trainees. Training must include at least the following: fall hazard recognition, fall hazard elimination and control methods, applicable fall protection and rescue regulations, how to use written fall protection and rescue procedures, inspection of equipment components and systems before use. If a worker falls and is suspended by a safety harness, the following emergency procedures shall be followed. The site supervisor or foreman shall control the emergency procedures. The site supervisor sounds the emergency alarm. All workers in the immediate vicinity of the site of the incident shall cease work. The site supervisor quickly evaluates the situation and identifies any further hazards that could arise. The site supervisor calls on channel 2 of the site radio device to notify the site emergency ambulance services and the safety officers on site. The site supervisor shall notify emergency rescue agencies such as the police and fire service on 191 and 192 respectively if required. The site supervisor shall assemble the emergency rescue team at the accident site as quickly as possible to determine the best rescue procedure for the situation. The telehandler operator shall immediately cease all activity to respond to bring the telehandler at the incident site for use. The operator shall use the man cage as a rescue platform for capturing the suspended worker. The man cage shall be properly inspected and secured by the forks of the telehandler for the rescue operation. The rescuer shall wear a safety harness appropriately hooked at an anchor of the man cage. The telehandler operator shall wait for further directions to carry out the rescue operation safely. The site supervisor isolates the accident zone and its perimeter to limit further exposure. All radios shall be silenced except for crisis communications from emergency responders. These communications are conducted on a pre-selected emergency-only radio channel, the safety channel. Using elevated working platform. If an elevating work platform is available to reach the victim on site, first bring it to the site and use it to reach the suspended worker. Ensure that rescue workers are protected against falling. Also, make sure that the EVP has the load capacity for both the rescuer or rescuers and the victim. If the victim is not conscious, 2 rescuers will probably be needed to safely handle the weight of the victim. Position the EWP platform below the worker and disconnect his lanyard when it is safe to do so. Treat the victim for suspension trauma and any other injuries. Finally, arrange for transport to the nearest hospital. Using a ladder. If a ladder is available to reach the victim, first, where possible, use ladder or ladders to reach the victim. Rig separate lifelines for rescuers to use while carrying out the rescue from the ladder or ladders. If the worker is not conscious or cannot reliably help with his or her own rescue, at least 2 rescuers may be needed. If the worker is suspended from a lifeline, where possible, move the suspended victim to an area that can be safely reached by the ladder or ladders. If the victim is suspended directly from his or her lanyard or from a lifeline, securely attach a separate lowering line to the victim's harness. Other rescuers should lower the victim while he or she is being guided by the rescuer on the ladder. Once the victim has been brought to a safe location, administer first aid and treat the person for suspension trauma and any other injuries. Then arrange for transport to the nearest hospital. If the injured person is suspended near the work area and can be safely reached from the floor below or the area they fell from, ensure that rescuers are protected against falling. If possible, securely attach a second line to the workers' harnesses to assist in pulling them to a safe area. Note that at least 2 strong workers will be needed to pull someone up. Ensure that any slack in the retrieving lines is taken up to avoid slippage. Once the victim has been brought to a safe location, administer first aid and treat the person for suspension trauma and any other injuries. Finally, arrange for transport to the nearest hospital. First aid for fall at height victims. First aid shall be administered by emergency medical technicians or trained first aiders on the site. In the event of fall injuries of the victim with suspected bleeding from the nose, ears or mouth, head, neck, back or hip injury, the affected individual has difficulty breathing or the individual is unable to move or is unconscious, call the standby ambulance service immediately on the radio device channel. For minor fall injuries, the following first aid assistance may be administered. Clean visible wounds with water. Apply an ice pack to the injury site to reduce swelling and pain. Do not apply ice directly to the skin, but wrap it in a cloth or towel. Stop any bleeding by applying pressure using a sterile dressing or a clean cloth.